podcast?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
we're live.
Just now.
This is my favorite countdown timer.
So the power has flashed 3 times here in the last 30 minutes. So,
like one day you're gonna bust out like a cool little rap to this,
one of these days,
right? Welcome to the show. It's Behind the Beards. That's about all you're gonna get from me.
I'll work on it.
Because I think it's a repeat tone, so you could like wait till like the last minute and bust it out. That'd be so dope.
That's true. Oh my gosh. Can't do it.
What?
Oh, just... I don't know. It's probably not the right venue. The outrage that people have for certain topics that is so like blatantly misguided. Someone asked the question, what was ever the purpose of single like sex restrooms? If I have to go, I'm going to use whichever one. Like, well, the purpose is decency and cleanliness. There's a lot of reasons behind it, and they're valid reasons.
Yeah.
Even the single use
reason is I think a lot of things always come down to like keeping children safe, and I think the biggest reason, or one of the biggest reasons are for single-sexed restrooms is keeping the innocence and the decency for children. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and this question was specifically about the single restrooms.
Sure.
The one-holers. And I would think women are appreciative that only women use their restroom, because I've been in men's restrooms. They're nasty.
Yeah, women's restrooms
I don't even want to use them.
Like, it's crazy. You go to a concert or something, and the women's line is like so far back, and yet I guarantee you walk into that bathroom and it's cleaner than the men's bathroom that has no line. Like,
yeah, guys are just using it from the door.
Yeah. Dude, no one tells you this.
Wreck.
Having a small child, a boy, is kind of frustrating post potty training. I'm like, dude, put the seat up. Like, you know you can aim it, right? Like, what are you doing? He's like in there like it's like a little Uzi gun. It's like, dude, like, let's practice our marksman. I used to see like those things, like they have little things you can put like over the toilet seat so like you can practice shooting at stuff. I'm like, that's dumb. And now I'm like, no, that might be good.
Nah, it's genius.
Yeah.
I know
like
some
now
adults
when
that
he's
you need
out,
to use that.
so we were out playing frisbee golf the other day, and before you got there, he was like, I have to pee really bad. So I took him back into the woods and I said, hey, I want you to pee on just that flower. Because I was like, okay, you need to practice like aiming. Like, this is just stupid how bad you are at this. And we did pretty good, but
That's funny.
and where's the parenting book on this, people? Places you never thought we'd be on Behind the Beards.
Oh, it was always fun.
I think
Potty
every
training,
time I
man, that was
preach, I mention our podcast. I don't know why.
I think every time you preach, we get at least like 2 more views on our Facebook page. So
It's true.
it's okay.
Maybe
I'll
next
do it
time
for them.
Next
do it
time
for
I'll
the
put
Lord.
I'll do a link on my PowerPoint. And if you scan this QR code, you could like and subscribe.
That's right.
Oh, you want to see something? I just found these while I was cleaning my desk. Oh, look at this cutie. Glamour shots from high
Glamour
school.
shots. Those were the days, man.
Ooh, look at that hair. See if she watches the show.
You're gonna get
She's
a text
like,
here a little bit.
She's like, why do you keep those? I was like, because you're a hottie. That's my wife. We would not have talked in high school.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in the land of the podcast of Behind the Beards. It's who we are, and here we try to pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and reveal the things that go on in the hearts and minds of your ministers and ministry leaders. This season, it's been a little bit different. We made a little shift, and I've kind of really liked what we've done this year. Looking at ways to prepare ourselves and our people just for Christian life as a whole. And the burdens that we carry is also the challenges that we face as Christians. So I've really enjoyed it. If you're new to the podcast, I'm Joshua Fowler. My partner over here is Aaron Partlow. Aaron's a youth minister, and I'm a family connections minister. And for the first time in a long time, it's not really the first time now, it's the first month, 6 weeks, we are together at a church in Longview, Texas, Pine Tree Church of Christ.
Surreal. It's cool. It's awesome.
It is, man. It's been 6 weeks, and it still doesn't feel real to look across the hallway and see your office, Sam running around.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. There's some good stuff going on. We're really excited to be a part of it, and excited.
I was excited for Josh to join us at Pine Tree until I realized that I lost my title.
That's right. You're now the seasoned veteran minister.
I was the new youth minister at Pine Tree, and people always go like, "Do you mind that we call you the new youth minister? You've been here for 2 years." I say no, because at a church, nobody gives the new guy a hard time.
That's right. That's right.
So I was like, I was on easy street. And now our pulpit minister, Jody Garner, always introduced me as the seasoned veteran youth minister, which I guess I've been doing youth ministry for 13 years, but I do not feel seasoned or veteran.
It's hard to believe.
It is. It's weird when you go to NCYM and your color changes on your tag because you have based on the amount of years that you've been in youth ministry, your color tag changes. And I think 20 is my next one, which, that'll be wild. But I just, it's weird. I still feel like they asked me to teach a class, or they asked me what topics I would teach if I would teach a class. They didn't ask me to teach a class. And I said, man, I don't know that I have anything of value to give at NCYM. And there's probably not. I probably do, but, I don't know. It's just like the way you feel. Sometimes it's crazy.
I think it's hard to picture yourself. I mean, I'm thinking, like, even in the season of life that I'm in, I've got a grandchild,
right?
And someone said something the other day, and they were like, we're not all a part of this younger generation. I'm like, yo, I got a grandbaby. I'm actually not a part of this younger generation anymore.
Yeah, no joke.
Like there are more and more things in my life that are preventing me from being able to say I'm one of the young kids. I can't go to the young couples class. Can't go to the young families class. So,
well, and I was turned off also for teaching at NCYM, maybe because I use that as a time to really fill my cup. And I know that there are times at Soul Quest, we go to Soul Quest. We take a bus from Longview, Texas, charter a bus. We drive 13 hours up to York, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And it's awesome. I love it for a great week. And then I teach class. Josh and I both will go this year and teach class. Was it 3 times a day for 5 days or 3 times a day for 4 days? It depends on if there's a hailstorm that cancels all the service projects on Wednesday or not. But anyway, we, teach class. And even though I'm teaching that class, I feel spiritually uplifted. It's such a fun way to start my summer. But at NCYM, I truly go to not be a youth minister and just to be a student and to learn and everything. And I feel like at this time of my life that I was not emotionally ready to kind of sacrifice some brain space for that trip to teach a class. And so there's almost like this realization of like what a limit would be. I know there's a limitation there that I need to see. I had a reason why I kept talking about this. There's a limitation there for me. Like I knew that I had to kind of decline even really giving topics and teaching a class because I needed that time, at least that year. Now in future years, I might be more open to it, preparing or being ready for something like that. But at least these last times, I knew it was a limitation. I knew that starting a new job at a new church, even though I've been here for 2 years, like it's still you're still really learning to ride the waves. This is my third summer with Pine Tree, really my second summer in control. So you're learning to ride the waves. You're slowly starting to add in your flavor of your ministry and stuff like that. So, but that's what we're going to be talking about today: embracing limits in a fast-paced culture. Sometimes we don't know where our limits are.
Well, and I mean, it's a fast-paced culture, but we've allowed that fast-paced culture to move into the church life as well.
Oh, boiling toad syndrome, totally.
And, you and I have talked a lot about programs, activities, and ministries, that there is a fine line, this very delicate balance between providing valuable and needed resources for our families.
Yeah.
Without contributing to the chaos.
That's right. Yeah, that's totally true.
And, understanding our limits personally, as a church, as families, is one of those things that we have to just be better at. And we can talk about limits for a little bit. There are, I don't know if these are just some categories that I came up with based off of what we've been talking about with Peter Scazzero's book, but there's some limits that are just God-given. Like there's some things that I just simply can't do because of the way God has the talents that I have. Some things I want to do, some things I would have a great desire to do, and I would feel like really cool if I could do them, but I just can't do it. I watch these guys. I'm a sports guy. And I go to a baseball game and I watch the MLB, and my toxic trait is with enough work and discipline, I could be that guy.
I could do that.
But, or if my parents had put me in camps when I was younger or gotten me started earlier, I could have been that. But yeah. Aren't they mostly what?
Well, I was going to ask, what's the average retirement age of a MLB player?
Oh, average retirement age is probably 35, 36. There's probably some that go a little later. But
I wonder what sport has the oldest athletes.
Golf?
It's a random question. Yeah, golf. Yeah. That was quick. You answered that fast.
I watch a few of them.
Yeah. Sports.
So God-given limits. There's some things that I just can't do because I've not been equipped to do them.
Yeah.
What are the kind of limits we're going to talk about today?
Well, we have eternal limits and external limits as well. That's on our list here. It is interesting to it's interesting to me to have the conversation of what is a God-given limit and what is a limit that I have set upon myself. And this is kind of veering off of what we were of our topic, but how do you decide what's a God-given limit or an internal limit or external limit, and a limit that you set upon yourself? There are things that I have said no to in my ministry because I know that for myself, it would not have been a healthy or good aspect. Um, I think there was when I was in Kansas, I was asked to be a part of this board, and my time was already pretty well spent. I was already a part. I was directing camp, and they wanted me to be on this board for this other kind of summer camp project that was happening in Kansas City. And I had to respectfully, decline. I was a part of the ShareFest board. I was running Tallgrass for the high school and middle school sessions at that point. And, between trying to do a high school mission trip and all of our youth group activities in the summer, like I was pretty thin, and it took me about a couple of weeks of praying over it. And I finally just said, this would not be healthy for me to add one more thing to my weekly balance.
Yeah. We can talk about testing those limits as well. I was looking at internal limits, which is limits that I have to put on myself, and then there's limits that I have to put on the people that are around me.
I guess that would fall under internal limits. What I was just talking about there.
And some of those it's important to test limits, right? Because, like you said, some of those are limits that we need to observe, and some of those are limits that we need to kind of press on. And I think about, like, if we just always yielded to our limits of walking, then as a toddler, we would never stand up on our own 2 feet and take steps.
Yeah.
There are some limits that are kind of natural that we have to push to continue to grow and mature, and to become more whole people, Christians. But there's some that God has put in place there that are they're intentional. And I think part of the testing is asking ourselves and discovering, is this a limit that I've been asked to push through and move past to be more mature and to grow? Or is this a limit that is here that needs to be put into place, or that has been put into place for my own well-being? And I think that's a hard distinction to kind of come across. And as I'm kind of thinking through it here, maybe I think there's some limits that God has placed, and there's some limits that God has asked us to place.
Right.
And I think those are different than just the natural barriers that occur over the course of life that we need to push through. And I don't know, and I wish there was like just a magic like formula that says, well, this is how you can know for sure.
Right.
And as I'm just kind of thinking through it, I'm not sure if there's any kind of I don't know, not tips, but ideas that you might have for recognizing when we need to push through a limit.
Well, I do, and I think Peter. I don't even know how to say his last name. I think I say it
Scazzaro.
wrong. Scazzaro. I think Peter Scazzaro does a good job in his book, because by the time that we've gotten to this chapter in his book, like we've talked about this idea of like pausing and stopping and praying. I think of what I preached on Sunday. Randy Harris talks about it in his first chapter of his book, Soul Work, where he talks about wasting time with God. And I think a lot of this stuff, like if you're not bathing it in prayer, and I'm not talking about just like these little moments of prayer, it means like scheduling and taking time and saying, hey, for 10 minutes, I'm going to sit in 5 minutes of silence and 5 minutes of prayer every single day. And I'm going to pray. I'm going to talk about this. If you're not using yourself as a tuning fork and tuning yourself into the Holy Spirit and taking moments in time like that, sometimes we have a schedule that's so full that we don't even know how. We are what Paul describes as babes and Christians. Like we're still drinking milk because we've never asked ourselves to mature in our faith. We've never taken moments and times in our days to just really practice these spiritual disciplines. Because there's not any big decision in my life that I am not bathing in prayer. And this isn't pat on the back for Aaron kind of a moment. This is a general Christian fact and knowledge. If you profess and say that you are a Christian, you should be bathing things in prayer. You should immerse things in prayer. In whatever decisions that is. You should be teaching your children to bathe things in prayer. Hey, mom, I've been wanting to know if I can play on sports baseball this summer. Do you think that we could fit that into the schedule? Why don't we pray about it a couple times and then we'll talk about it tomorrow? Let's pray about it tonight and tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow night we'll decide. You know, boy, what a practice that would be. What a lesson you would be teaching your child, that hey, we don't do anything in this family without bringing it before the throne of God. And so I think when we are looking at our limitations, when we're looking at saying yes or no, in my opinion, I feel like we should be, really bathing that in prayer. And I think God will tell you, yes, I want to push you through this limitation because there's so much more you can do through me. You think of most of the judges in the Old Testament. I think of Gideon, who was like, I can't do this. And God's like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm here,
Yeah.
pushing him.
You can't.
Through
That was never the intent, was for you to
That's
do
right.
anything.
Pushing him through his leadership limitations, and then I think of Deborah, and she tells that guy to go and lead this army, and yet he won't push through his limitation. And so she says, fine, well, you won't have victory. Victory will be in the hands of a woman, and so there's a good example right there of somebody who won't push through a limitation. So it's given to somebody else. And somebody else who says, I can't do it, but I'm going to trust you, God, and I'm scared. And God says, it's okay. I'm going to walk you through it, and I will show you deliverance through that.
And I think there are some aspects of our culture that, like part of it's just ingrained in us, is to test limits.
Yeah.
We've been testing them. Adam and Eve tested
I have a 4-year-old
in the garden.
He's testing them every day
from the moment you're born. We're trying to decide, okay, here's a limit. Is it a firm limit or is it soft? If I push against it, will it move? And that's one of the things that when I'm speaking to young parents, especially, I encourage them. It's like, hey, don't set a limit that you aren't willing to enforce, and don't set a consequence that you aren't willing to enforce. Because it is our nature.
Post being real.
It's our nature to press those and test those things, and kids need to know that there are firm limits.
They do.
They also need to know that if you're going to press against this, we can talk about it, and there are some limits that maybe we can readjust. With some conversation and some. And as they get older, those things change and they begin to move and shift a little bit. But what they need to know is which of those are hard and fast rules that just don't move. And they also need to know that the consequences that we lay out are always going to be there because it's our nature to push against them. But I think there are some other things, hey, buddy, listen, you can grow up and be anything you want to be. That's a lie.
Yeah.
That is a bold-faced lie. You can't grow up and be anything that you want to be. And you know what? You also can't do anything you want through Christ who gives you strength. Sure. And so we've taken even scriptural things and we mold them and shape them into these kind of self-help, self-promotion ideals that are just lies. And so if I grow up being told that I can be anything I want to be, well, you know what? I'm in for a rude awakening when the real world hits me in the face and says, no, you're not equipped for that.
Nah, that ain't happening.
And when Paul writes, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, he's talking about being content in the most difficult and challenging of circumstances. He's not talking about great accomplishments. So there's some things that push us to ignore even the things that God has set in place. Just like Adam and Eve in the garden.
I also think in our culture today, like we can look and I'll be one to profess this because I see it a lot as a youth minister, that a lot of families are at their limits already. And a lot of times they're at their limits before they even look at the church calendar. Yeah. And so I feel bad, but at the same time I don't, because sometimes it feels like people are trying to squeeze in church time or squeeze in youth group or all these kind of things, where we have exceedingly ignored what's healthy for our families, for our children, or for ourselves, as far as like time management, and then we try to squeeze in some spiritual aspects, uh, or well, I had years and years and years ago, I had a family, and they're like, oh, I just don't know why my kid. They're like, I don't know why my kid doesn't feel connected to the youth group, and I thought they were like, I 100% thought they were joking, and I went, wait, really? And they're like, yeah. Wait, do you? And I was like, did they have a bad experience? And I said, they've never been to youth group. And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, they've never been to youth group. I said, man, they have never come to Bible class. I said, y'all come to church. They're never here Wednesday nights. I said, we do Monday evening devotionals. They're not there. In the summer, we do Tuesday evening devotionals. Instead, they're never there. I said, I don't know. I said, have they ever registered for a youth group event? Well, no, they said that because they don't know the youth group. And I was like, because they haven't like been
you got to
to
show up.
youth group. And so, yeah. And so it's like you have limited on them in this sense, so.
Yeah. There are things that transpire that we have to really kind of take advantage of. And one of those is recognizing that busyness is not a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Busyness is not a badge of honor. It doesn't mean that you're more successful. And I think that's one of the things that we have. Hey, I want my kids to be so well-rounded. I want to be involved in everything so they have every experience under the sun.
Right.
There's some value in that.
It's this FOMO that like grabs a hold of people.
And that's what I was kind of going to in the garden, right? You have Adam and Eve that have a relationship with God. And what does the serpent convince them of? You're missing out on something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, God doesn't want you to eat of this tree of knowledge because he doesn't want you to be like him. And they lost sight of the fact that they were already like him. They were already made in his image. They already had everything they needed and everything they could possibly want. And the only thing God wanted for them to know was him and a relationship with him. And the serpent convinced them that they were missing out on something.
Mm-hmm.
And so they pushed past those boundaries. And that's kind of been the MO ever since. That it pushes us to say, hey, you know what? God's put that limit on you because he doesn't want you to see what's on the other side. Yeah. And so what we have to do is we have to understand that a lot of these limits are limits that we need to embrace because they've been placed there for our own protection. Mm-hmm. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and often even physically. And one of the things I've really come to learn in embracing limits is trying to learn to love who I am and where I am. Mm-hmm. And not trying to be someone that God has not made me to be. Because I look at the influence that other people have, especially as a minister, as a leader. I look out and I go, man, that guy posts a video and he immediately gets like 200,000 views. Right. How many people is that guy influencing? And what can I do to get that kind of an influence? So you know what? Maybe God didn't create me to wear that kind of influence or to bear that kind of influence.
Or maybe I can't handle that kind of influence.
Yeah.
Maybe I would start serving myself opposed to serving God. Maybe I would be focused on too many views. That's a fear that I have. I pray about that and I talk to Lauren all the time. I don't think I'm this is a humbling moment. I don't think that I'm anywhere near like a great speaker or anything like that. But I tell Lauren, I said, like, I don't want to be a full-time preacher because I know that I enjoy preaching too much. That I feel like it might go to my head or something like that, or I might be preaching for myself too much opposed to like listening to God's word and really preaching what God wants me to preach. I have never, I have an opportunity to go to Manifest in the Pacific Northwest in September. I'm excited about that. I was honored to go and do that. I don't want that to be a gateway to me being a keynoter for other stuff. I don't, because I know that I would enjoy that too much, and I know that like I have a very easy inflatable ego.
Yeah. Well,
You
and that's one of the
if you
things
don't
that
believe that, play a game of ping pong with me, and you will see my ego come out. Very quickly. And so I think that's an internal limit that I've kind of put on myself a lot of occasions is to decline or not to do something like that.
well, and you and I talked a lot about that before I took this job, and one of the questions I had to ask myself was,
Mm,
um, and it's also one of the questions that Jody asked me when he called before we took the job as well, and that was, uh, are you going to be okay not preaching?
yeah,
Because you've been
yeah, we talked
preaching
about
for
that a
seven
lot.
and a half years. Yeah. And I had to ask myself the question is, where does my identity lie? Does my identity lie in a servant in the kingdom of God,
Mm,
or does my identity lie in Josh the preacher? And I think it had kind of gotten to a point where like my whole identity was wrapped up in who I was as a preacher, not
mm,
as a servant. And that led to some really spiritually unhealthy habits and practices, for me. And so, embracing um, that understanding, that I can have value, rich, full value, in exactly who I am and who God has created me to be. And when I look at what I've been sent here to do with, the family ministry, uh, there are a lot of folks that come into a church setting, and um, because of the teaching of Scripture, and because of
hmm
the typical view of family, there are a lot of people that come into churches and they don't know where they fit.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that have been single all their lives. They might be 40, 50, 60 years old, and they've never married.
hmm
Maybe they've been married for 20 or 30 years and they've never had children.
hmm
Maybe they couldn't have children. Maybe they've been divorced and they have blended families, or they've been separated and they're single parents. So there's a lot of people that come in, and because of the structure of the family that we have, I think they look and they wonder, I know I should fit in here, but I don't know where or how I fit.
Yeah. How can I
Um,
fit into this? Yeah.
and so understanding the limits that have been placed on our lives, whether we've asked for them or not, um, understands that whatever is going on in our life right now, um, I can embrace that, and I can learn to serve
Right.
God out of the fullness of my singleness, even out of the fullness of my divorce,
hmm
out of the fullness of my marriage, out of the fullness of my family, out of everything that I am right now. I can give God everything I have.
hmm
And that brings something of value to the table. And that's kind of been the impetus of our family ministry, is expanding our view of this and saying, whatever your family looks like,
Yeah.
we want to hear and learn from your experiences so that we can all move forward together in a happy, or in a healthy and a holy way. Um, and I think that's part of the benefits of learning to embrace. I'm not trying to be who somebody else is. I'm not trying to make my life into somebody else's life. This is what I've been given. This is where I am. And how can I serve God out of the fullness of where I am right now? And I
hmm
think that's a really powerful place to be when we can embrace those things.
And I think like you have to say this. We're not telling people to recognize your limits and say no to teaching Bible class, or say no to or
Please
hey,
don't.
oh, the children's, yeah, like we're not telling you like to, or say no to ministries or other stuff like that. Like I hate to tell you that. That's like when you go to the doctor and they're like, "Hey, Aaron, I don't know if you know this. You're kind of fat. Um, like you should go on a diet," and be like, "You're right, doctor. I'm sorry. I'm gonna cut out vegetables. I'm gonna cut out fruit. I'm gonna cut out, healthy proteins." And the doctor's like, "Wait, no. Like those are the wrong things that you're cutting out of your life. Those are the wrong limitations you're putting on your life. You're right, doctor. I'm gonna cut out frisbee golf. I burn too many calories when I play frisbee golf."
That's
You
right.
know, the doctor would be like, whoosh, and slap me. And I think sometimes when there's a fear when I'm like, "Hey, we should put limits on your life." People are like, "You know what? You're right." hey, I can't teach Bible class this quarter because I'm going to take a break. And it's like, yeah, there's some moments. There are some people who have taught for like 12 years straight. Maybe you should take a quarter off
Mhm.
and like be and learn what it's like to be. But there's a lot of you and myself. Well, not myself. I have taught for 12 years straight. But there's a lot of people who have never taught, who have never stepped into that role, who your limitations are that you are saying, "Oh, good. This is an example of I should let more church out of my life and take more time for myself." And it's not really taking time for yourself as much as it's taking time for God and yourself to spend that time together and
Yeah.
to put limits on extracurricular things because your curricular should be Jesus, you know.
Yeah, and I like the example of David, right?
Yeah,
David asked to
David.
David asked to build a temple for God, and God
Mm,
said no because there's too much blood on your hands.
that's right.
And as disappointed as he was, because he wanted to build God's temple,
Mhm.
he didn't stop working. What he did
Yeah,
was he built a kingdom so that his son could build the temple for God.
that's right.
And so
Mhm.
he accepted the limit, but it didn't prevent him from continuing to work towards a goal.
Man, that'd be a
Um,
good sermon right there.
yeah,
Are you building in your life? Are you building a kingdom for your children to be able to build and worship in a temple of God?
wish I could bookmark this recording somewhere. Like,
That's so good. And you look at that example and you think about like, are you in your life building a kingdom where your family is raised with God as the
mhm.
center and able to build that temple in their lives? Oh, let's rewind. Maybe that's a good senior Sunday sermon. That's fantastic.
So that's a senior Sunday sermon for the families of the seniors
Yeah, that's not
as
really a
well.
senior Sunday
You know,
sermon. That's just a
so
good family connections
um,
class. Oh, that could be our fall class.
yeah, could be building a kingdom.
Building the
Oh,
kingdom.
there's even a song there.
Build your
Yeah,
kingdom here. Oh, I love that song.
I do too.
That is my hype worship song. Hey, we're getting to the end of this podcast today, but I need to share something all with y'all. Sunday cool. Except for I got to get rid of this other thing. Josh, do the cool things.
I'm trying.
Boom, hide it.
I didn't
Sunday
have any
cool.
warning of what you're about to do
Eh,
relative than that.
I
So
know. But hey, if you guys don't know about Sunday Cool, Sunday Cool is a fantastic and wonderful place. This is not an ad, by the way, because you get money from ads, and I don't get monies. But I was blessed to be a Sunday Cool ambassador. I love Sunday Cool so much. I order all of our T-shirts, all of our apparel, everything from them. It's super cool. Josh has a beanie that says Sunday Cool on it, and I am super like
dude,
envious of that. That is so cool. I don't have anything like that. I have a hat. I used to have a hat that was a Sunday Cool hat. That was my favorite, but it got ruined. But as an ambassador, they treat us really well. They give us these cool swag boxes. I am saving this box because it's so cool. I'm going to bring it to my office. It is a really cool box. They also have a podcast. If you like Christian comedy that is clean, that is funny, these guys have an amazing podcast. Ninjas Are Butterflies. And it's the number one podcast in whatever that place is. Barra, Barbados or something like that. But they gave me, it's so cool as an ambassador.
Barbados,
Like
maybe.
maybe that's what I was thinking, but that just seemed too easy. I got a free T-shirt. I got I got a couple stickers and stuff like that. But I love Sunday Cool, and I will tell you this right now: there is not a better T-shirt company that I have ever worked with. Youth ministers, if you are last minute, you can order your shirts a week before, and they will get them to you. They will print them and they will ship them to you. It is amazing.
Yep. They
They
bailed
do
me out
such
of
a
many
good job.
binds.
They do, and they feel comfortable. They're breathable. Your logos, it's this water-based printing, and so it breathes through your sweat and everything like that. And as a guy who grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I didn't know what it meant to sweat until I moved to the Midwest and moved to East Texas. It is hot here. And I'm thankful for breathable t-shirts that don't stick to my body. You know, if you have this sound when you're taking your shirt
Bad
off,
deal.
it's not a good sound. It's not fun. Anyway, I just wanted to remind you all to check them out. Cool Carl, they have some really cool Christian t-shirts too that are kind of funny and good. They make great gifts if you have kids in their 20s or younger. There's t-shirts and stickers and stuff on there that I guarantee you that they will love. Some clean content, some funny stuff on their YouTube, just all around good stuff. I use it for my youth group. I use it for my own life. I listen to their podcast on the drive to work all the time. And my 4-year-old the other day went, "Dad, are we going to listen to the podcast?" Because he finds some of the stuff that they do really funny.
Nice.
So
well, you know what happens if you wear a
guys.
Sunday Cool T-shirt? If you wear a Sunday Cool T-shirt, you never burn out.
That's true.
It's the other gift of embracing limits is you never burn out.
Never burn out.
You capitalized on one of those comments from the book that I thought was really good. You burn out when you try to give what you don't possess.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was good. I'll have to remember that.
I don't even remember saying that.
Well, you did say it. You just highlighted it and brought it out. So Peter Scazzaro said it.
That's right, in the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds way too smart for me to say that.
Yeah, that's right. So man, when you look at the world we're living in and you look at how prevalent burnout is, that's not just about ministers.
Mm-hmm.
Families in churches, families in baseball, families in softball, families in soccer, families in school, teachers in school. I mean, we are burned out. We're burned out because we haven't learned how to embrace the limits that we've needed. And also, we haven't talked much. Maybe it's a whole nother podcast, but it's about placing limits on people around us, family and other members. It is, but there is something about really understanding who it is that God has called us to be, and how I want to come back to this. How do we move forward and serve God out of the fullness of who we are?
Yeah.
When we have to stand and account for everything that we've done in our life, the question is not going to be, Josh, how come you weren't more like Aaron? The question is not going to be, Josh, why weren't you more like Tom Cruise or Aaron Judge? The question is going to be, what did you do with who I created you to be? I think there is a great blessing in understanding what God has given us to do, who He's created us to be, and how we can move forward in the fullness of that. I kind of have, this behind the beards moment on here as we kind of move towards winding things down. Discerning which limits should be embraced and which should be pushed through. We've kind of touched on that kind of along the way, but I think I really just want to encourage people to really think about that. Don't overlook them. Don't embrace limits that you should be pushing through, and don't push through limits that you should be embracing. And I'll come back to you because you said it 100 times over the course of this podcast and previous ones. And I'm really glad that you always do. First step into that kind of discernment is
prayer.
Bathe it in prayer.
Bathe it in prayer, baby.
I still really like that metaphor of bathing or baptizing something in prayer. It's at the beginning, it's at the end, and it's all the way through the process.
The best part about talking about
weakness of mine, so.
Like the best part about like saying like baptizing it in prayer is say you're baptizing it in prayer. And I just thought about this because we just had a teen get baptized 2 weeks ago, right? Is that when you baptize something in prayer, you have to walk it into the water and it gets wet.
Yeah.
You dunk it in water and it gets wet. And then you walk out and you're still wet.
And it's still wet. That's right.
And even though like I'm wearing those funny overall things or whatever, and I get out of the water, my
I'm still wet.
My sleeve is still wet. My arm is still wet. I'm wet because I hugged that person, and so like it's like you are like you're immersing it in water, but you go in dry and it's wet when you come out and it's soaking wet, and you can
Yeah.
tell, and so that whole imagery of whatever that you're taking and truly bathing it in prayer means from head to toe, it's getting wet. It's being covered in prayer.
Yeah, man. I think that's good. Got to
So I'm
do it.
sprinkling
Got to
a
pray
prayer.
for it. Got to just sit in that discernment of what God has
Sit
called
in
us
it.
to do and who He's called us to be.
You'll sit in it and love it. Hey, man, we want to thank you all for being here today. We appreciate you. Josh and I do this show to bring glory to God, and we also do it for our own sake and our own well-being. We enjoy it. We love it. And we are glad that you are here to participate and be here with us. Send us an email if you got a comment or you have an idea of what you want to show or some shows to kind of look like. We're happy to do whatever we can do and to help you in your ministry, you in your church, or you in your personal life as well. But we do want to say thank you for being here today. And we want to remind you of Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Do not grow weary in doing good. This world is messy. This life is messy. So allow Christ to use you to do something different. Man, this world just needs something different. Do something good. Don't do it in your own name. Don't do it for your own glory. Do it for Jesus. I'm Aaron. This is Josh. And we'll see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Cool.
Sunday cool.
Sunday cool.
Maybe that should be our sign off. Cool? Oh, Sunday cool.
Sunday cool. And I love Sunday cool stuff. I always get so excited when Sunday cool stuff. Like I yesterday, as I was driving home, Andy DeNewton, one of the guys at Sunday Cool, his Facebook went live. Swag boxes are here, and I was like, oh, surely mine's not here. Surely it'll be here like Tuesday or Wednesday. It was sitting right outside the front door. Got to open it up. Looking good. I instantly put this shirt on too yesterday. And then I was like, oh, but I want to wear it for the podcast. So then I took it off.
Ninjas are butterflies.
Have you never listened to that podcast?
Uh-uh.
Oh, man. It is like weird and funny. And it gets better. It gets better as it goes on. And what's even better is that Cool Carl, not Andy, but the other guy. Oh, I hope we're not live. We're still live. I can't remember his name, which is terrible. Anyway, when they add his wife to the podcast,
Josh Hooper.
Josh, that's right, Josh, Andy and Josh. So like later on in the season, like episode 5 or 6, she becomes a full-time member of the podcast, and they are. She's like really funny. She like brings like exactly what they're missing on the podcast. So it's great. So I think they recognize that, and then they keep her on as a full-time person. And so they're just so funny. I like their podcast, and they're like an hour long. So usually when we go to Kansas, if I know, like they put one out every Friday. I don't listen to it for like 2 or 3 weeks before, so that we have like 3 to 4 hours of the podcast to listen to. But anyway, clean, funny. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, everything they put out is always, I mean, all the content's good. Even if it's odd and not of your reality, it's still good content.
I think what I most like about the podcast is that they're not playing characters. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's
not
actually
even Cool Carl.
them. Not even Cool Carl. No, Josh is just Josh. And they're just really funny. And they also talk about their origin story, like how they met, like how Andy and Josh met and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
It's funny. I don't think I realized that was his real name. I only know that guy is Cool Carl.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's created such a persona around that character.
He has.
I figured his name was Carl.
Carl. Yeah, I know. You would think that, but no, it's Josh.
Oh, it's good stuff. All right.
Very
Post
good
show?
stuff. All
We're
right,
out.
post show. Get out of here. Get some work done.